Hello and welcome to the Dance of the Soul. We are here. Regan just got home from a trip all weekend. So if he'll be popping in, but we had some technical problems and you know, I wanted to explain a little bit about that here in a minute. But I wanted you to know that happy Halloween, and wherever you're at, whatever country you're in, we're going to be kind of neutral here because we're in kind of this time frame where souls are really awake. And, because we're on going into November 1st, which is All Saints Day or All Souls Day or, that kind of a thing. So, with that we're all in the midst of doing this dance of being here during the soul time. And I know for me, it's like I'm home now. I will not be driving because of how many souls are out there and walking around. And I live in a very big town, or not a big town, but a town where like I'm within just if I go out just 25 feet from my house on the other side, there is the cemetery. So with that, it's not necessarily that cemeteries have a lot of souls attached to them, but sometimes when souls are in this minute of dance, they do come around, kind of checking out where they were buried, or checking out with family. And hi, Regan, can you hear me today now?
Yeah, hi everybody.
Hi.
Oh man, I rushed in and threw on my shirt and my coat real quick. My computer hasn't been used here in almost 2 weeks since we've been gone. So anyway, I'm here on using my iPhone instead of my computer.
Oh, geez, that makes a lot of sense. No, and I wanted people to know that, right now Mars went into retrograde. And Mars is in Gemini. So what happens when we go to a planet that is in like a sign like Gemini? Well, Mars is not attached to Gemini. Mercury is attached to Gemini. So here, while Mars is in retrograde, since Gemini, uh, uh, Mercury represent or is partners with Gemini in the signs, if you know astrology, and Mars is attached to, I think, Aries. But so with that sometimes when a planet like Mars is in retrograde with Gemini, will still get kind of like a extra seasoning of Mercury in there. And so Mercury represents technology, metals. So please be careful while driving. Be careful while doing this and that. If we're not concentrating, we can have an oops type of thing happening. So this is going to be going on until Mars is out. And I really don't know when Mars is going out of retrograde. I should check that out real quick. But it's one of those things that this is why I listen to one of my astrologers, because I get these little tidbits of the dance, and so it totally makes sense. So I'm so grateful, Regan, that you are able to be here today, because I know you just literally got in the door.
Just walked in. Yeah, it took us an extra half hour today. I don't know why. Just got a couple of places along the way where it was touch and go traffic for a while, and then it would speed up, and I don't know. But anyway, we had a great time in Monterey, and we had to get home before dark for all the goblins come out.
Yes, exactly.
We usually have, because we're on a busier street here, and we have a security gate out front. Generally speaking, we don't get any trick-or-treaters, but directly behind us, it's the perfect name of a street. It's called Shadow Lane, and it's where everybody on the street, or a lot of people decorate, and it's like where the people in Ross here, like a lot of the kids go there.
Yeah.
So when the podcast is over here, then we're gonna just go over there and walk the street and see the kids and see the decorations and everything.
Oh, that would be cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So it is kind of weird, isn't it? How it's this one day a year, in a weird way, we kind of celebrate ghosts and goblins and witches, and like it's almost okay for kids to be that, or to pretend to be those things which normally would be scary, or would be something that would be have a negative connotation. But on this one day a year,
Yep, here
you
we
know?
are. We can be ghosts, we can be spirits. Now, just to clarify here, that Mars will be in retrograde until after the new year.
Yeah.
So here until after January 12th. So here until the middle of January of next year. Please be careful because we're going to have a Mercury in retrograde kind of feeling where we have to be careful about driving, technology, what do we say, how are we going to say it, just be kind and know that people can get triggered a little bit because Aries is Mars is the warrior god, so there's a little bit of anger that can happen, and it's in Gemini, which is about the mind. So we might be overthinking something. So with
Yeah.
that, just be careful. But yeah, oh, so that'd be cool. Going back to what you were saying. Sorry about that. Finishing off my
Well,
scrolling here.
I mean,
Um,
it's almost, I mean, for even for me, I have to admit a little still, there's something in me when we talk about astrology, we talk about retrograde and everything like that. There's a bit of me still that feels a little like that's a little bit of the occult in a sense, like witch's brew or something like that. But I'd like to have somebody, maybe we could get a guest on, or you seems you know a lot on that too, to explain to people, because people hear retrograde and they want to run for the hills, or they always think of that as being the excuse that people make when things aren't going well. They says, well, something's got to be in retrograde,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
But
and Mercury gets a bad rap. He really gets a bad rap about how, oh, it's in retrograde again. It's all Mercury's fault. We don't take any blame for anything. But that's what when a planet goes into retrograde, it's not necessarily about a planet going backwards, but what a planet does is it says, "Stop. Let's think a little harder about that. Let's look at that," and it's called shadow work in a way, but that it's going down into that knowing about why things are happening. How can we push the reset button? It's about the reset, rethink, re-know, refigure out, reapply, renegotiate, the whatever the re is, to think a little slower on what are we doing. It's like, do we react or do we interact? Is this a pattern that we need to look at? What is our patterns that we need to, say, oh, I need to really look at this pattern. Is it something that I want to revisit again? Is this something that I want to revisit again? And so the re's and when we look at, it's real easy to Google. So like if you know that Mercury or Mars is in retrograde, Google it. Mars in retrograde, what does that mean? And if you read a little bit about what does it trigger, a little bit of anger. It's in Gemini, so it's about thinking, overthinking, don't stinking thinking, type of thing with this frustration thing. And it's interesting that it's going to go on while we're having our elections and stuff like
yeah,
that. So how can we not overthink, oversay, over process what is really happening? Let the process happen. Like I was letting, like the last week's I trust the process, because we don't know what the process is going to happen until, maybe months and months and months and years from now, why things are happening today. And
yeah,
that's the thing. And right now we're in this big shift because we're in between eclipses too with the moon. And so with that when we have eclipses, a lot of times when we put something into aspect, and I've learned this from listening to my astrologer, listening to other people, is that, and I've witnessed it myself, but they put language to my knowing sometimes, that when we're in between eclipses, a lot of times what we set up is 6 months in process. It's not necessarily a one shot thing. You can feel the effect of an eclipse 6 months from now about what we're planning, what we're doing, what we're trying to do.
questions I have about astrology sometimes is like, it seems like in anything like astrology or whatever, that there's so many different schools of thought and so much controversy. So when we talk about all these in retrograde, just as far as you know in astrology, is there some people that are astrologists that go, oh, they know nothing what they're talking about. It's all this, and another one going, no, no, it's kind of like religion is, where you
Mm-hmm.
start with the one and then it offsprings and everybody has their take on it, and and I'm I'm guessing that there's certain things that they probably all agree on, you know, and then there's probably certain things where they don't. So again, it's like, you go online and who's to check this astrology stuff, and what sites are just going to be cookie cutter where someone's put stuff up there that they know nothing about, and who has a really, it's like, well, it's kind of like mediums.
Hmm.
There's some of them that are just excellent A plus, like you are.
Thank you.
And then there's ones that are D minus, that barely know what they're doing, and mess up people because they interpret things wrong and everything. So I guess with
But
astrologers,
that's
you just have to try to find one that you feel fits or something.
exactly. And it is about feeling the fit and also to longevity. Someone who's been talking their talk for a long time. I know that the astrologer that I listen to, Janet Hickox, living-astrology.com, she applies many different facets of human design, astrology, and gene keys. And so she's about bringing many different facets together. And I love how she looks at how can we do better in life. Her intention is always to bring better light in. Hey, this is going to be, the moon's going to be triggering a lot of our shadow work, but don't punish yourself, work through it. And so her language is a lot of those things. And she's live every Monday and Friday at 8 o'clock Pacific time. She's live then. And I really enjoy her intentions, her values. I've been working with her for almost 20 years. And so she's been consistently herself. And that's one thing that I've loved, is that she's grown. What's the word? She's grown in her knowledge since day one, but she's always stayed true to her intentions. And that's in her integrity. And that's what I love about her.
Yeah. So would you say that astrology is more of a help for people physically, in a sense, or is it more of a physical thing? Like, in other words, it's all about energies and the way everything combines, and when the energies are good, it's easier to get things done, and when energies are more constricted, it's a little more hard to get things done.
Yes. Well, like today we had a moon in void of course. And so this morning it was really hard to get out of bed. It was really hard to get moving this morning. It was hard to get the wheels turning, and as the day's gone on, the energy's kind of picked up and shifted a little bit, and so things are able to move. And so when things are happening, you kind of get into self-punish, or you get out of self-punishing. And so what it is that when astrology affects us physically. So like, let's say, if you have a certain sign, you might have more backaches, let's say, because that part of that astrology represents that part. And then like you can tell on a sign if you're going to have more struggles with relationships. Like I have black moon Lilith in my part of my chart that represents dealing with relationships. And so Lilith represents woman. So like this year, my intention was, how do I interact with women relationships? How can I add to them and not have them be triggered? Not necessarily. And then if some miscommunication with a woman friend of mine, work on healing it more than saying, oh, I'm done with her, type of thing. So with that, taking that angst out of it. So knowing that all year, I was able to work with my relationships a little differently.
Yeah.
And so it is very physical, but it's very spiritual. And if you can get an astrologer that's about spirit at the same time, then it's a little bit more easier negotiation with your life. And I know for me that that knowing I get a chart done every year to get the theme of what I'm working on for the year.
Yeah.
Even though I know it intuitively, it helps me to go, okay, so I'll be a little bit better. These little fruit flies are flying around. I'll be a little, it's better for me to work on that at the end of the year more than at the beginning of the year. And like there was one time where she told me, are you gonna, this is a year you want to be a good steward of your money. And so that was a theme in my life. That year was, okay, I want to be a good steward.
Yeah.
And so with that there's these things, and then you work on this, and you get into the timing, like this is Halloween, but it's also All Saints Day. It's the turning over into All Saints Day, All Souls Day, all
Oh, that's
it
true. Yeah.
and
Isn't that how it originally was? Like a pagan
it
kind
was a
of thing,
pagan
and it had to do
holiday.
with the people that passed on Halloween?
Exactly. And the religions or the government didn't like how it was a pagan holiday, so they changed it a little bit. They
Yeah.
changed it from All Souls Day to All Saints Day, let's say. And I know that over in China that this is their month that they're doing this. And so with that we're in that that ebb and flow of the time of this. So in a way, it's not necessarily what's in the astrology, but it also is, that process of the timing of things too. So it's a pretty magical time. I sometimes when I was at school, when I was around a bunch of kids, it was like, holy crap, this is like swimming through mud, because of all the spirit was in there, all their family members and all their grandparents and all their, it's like, oh my gosh, it was almost too much to see everything, and I didn't want to see everything.
Well, I wonder, how did this all get figured out? I mean, where someone will say, okay, like you just said, this is the time when it's hard to communicate with the feminine or the masculine or whatever it is. I would think that the only way it could have been figured out would be if there was some sort of spiritual connection, more than just, I don't know, or just, I don't know. It's just,
Well, if you
but I
if you
know it's
think
over
about it,
thousands of years that this is thousands and thousands of years that this has been figured out. So,
yeah, because of our star family. The star family helped us to know what these different represented, and then
that makes sense.
you look at and this is one thing I like about Janet too, is that she's a double Gemini, so she reads up and she remembers things. Me, I don't remember. I don't If I, like I was telling a friend today, it's like Samhain, this is going to be Samhain here, and if I read that in a book, I wouldn't have known it was Samhain. And so how would I know that if I heard it? So I didn't know what to apply it to. So I don't remember things when I read things in books, because sometimes I don't know what the word is with my dyslexia. And so with that there's a time where things are happening, but the star beings gave us the knowledge of how to look at the planets. And then there's also the gods and goddesses of the goddess of war and the god of war, and a lot of these different deities are represented with the moons and the planets. And so then you get these stories of the gods and goddesses to back up the theme of what happens with that planet. And so when you can get somebody, that's why I love listening to Janet, because she's very knowledgeable about the gods and goddesses too. So she applies a lot of those stories to the intentions of what is really happening.
Wow.
Yeah. And so with that we have ancestors and gods and ghosts and goblins, and this time has almost from day one, somebody has known that this was a doorway. It was just set up that way. It's just what is. It's not just on this planet. I get a feeling that this is kind of like where the veil is just really thin. And as the veil is thinning, we are getting more and more into this dance of the openings here of the veil with loved ones.
Yeah. In other words, just like they have the solstice and the opposite of that, which I forget what it is right
The
now.
equinoxes.
The equinoxes, yeah. That this is the time of the year, like autumn or fall, I guess you would say, when somehow the ghosts or whatever, the spirits or something from the other side, that the wall is a little bit thinner, and so there's that communication between the dead and the living. And man, that's
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, because ghosts and spirits are basically the same thing. but it's how they are applied. Like a spirit would be more of a loved one, where a ghost would be somebody who is sticking around in a building, let's say. So
Yeah.
they're more of a ghost, but they are still spirit. They're still part of that negotiation of energy that is not necessarily alive, but it is alive in energy.
Yeah. The more that I looked at ghost programs and read about them and tried to educate myself somewhat on them, I mean, I became that was probably one of the first things that was easier for me to believe in, you know, when I was growing up. It seemed to, other things took me a lot of years before I believed, like, in heaven or, other things like that. I had to kind of wait till I was more mature. But uh, it seems like ghosts. If someone tries to explain ghosts, it would take like a volume of information rather than just a few paragraphs.
Hmm.
Like there's so many combinations, so many variations, so many reasons, and and sometimes when people are talking about ghosts, they just have an idea of one thing the way ghosts are, and if it doesn't fit into that, they don't know how to navigate the ghost thing. But it seems like we're learning, more and more. And of course, I think ghosts get a bad rap a lot of times because we tend to fear what we don't understand. So we put them in a category of evil or something when maybe that they're totally benign,
Hmm.
that there's, you know,
Well, or
nothing at all. And
they're distrusting.
the what?
The distrusting that, it's like, if someone, there's these, I was watching a show and they went into the this Las Vegas hotel, and
I heard about that.
they were
There's one hotel
asking.
over there that has a history of ghosts.
They do, and what's sad is that, they're trying to talk to someone who basically committed suicide. So they were very much a disheartened soul when they were crossing over. And so when a soul has that that understanding, and this is the one thing that I understand, that a lot of times, that when a spirit or a soul is left, not every time but a lot of the times, that it's more of an energy an energy spot, that part of them got left, the part of their soul got left. Like you say, that a part of our soul comes down to earth here.
Yeah,
It's not all the way here. But when we get certain experiences that happen to us, a lot of times we leave, like a crumb of our soul back at that spot, right?
yeah,
And so if we got molested or raped when we were younger, and we leave that part of us back there, well, if it's a big thing, we'll leave a bigger piece of that crumb of our soul, but not necessarily all of it. Where, like, if somebody is has passed away, very rarely, unless it's quickly, unless it's like me talking to a spirit that basically committed suicide, or had something, that they want to go home, that it's not like a soul signature that I'm talking to. It is actually the soul that is ready to cross over. And I do try to have most of that soul go with them when they cross over. But there are some times when they go in, and a soul is like, you know, a lot of times back down in New Orleans too, that they have these souls that stay in these homes because of trauma. And a lot of times these souls aren't the full soul. They are remnants of the soul that
yeah,
are staying there because they didn't like what happened. It's part of their memory. And that's the thing, that a lot of times, like for me, when I had a past life where my dad was a serial killer, right? And so for me, I've been working on collecting those parts of my soul. going back to that lifetime and saying, we don't have to stay here and feel shame anymore. We're going to come up and be here. So we can go back and reclaim these pieces of our soul, kind of like we can do in this lifetime. It's called soul retrievals. But I like doing it in past lives too.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, since and everybody too, my name is Regan, as you can see up there, and
That's true. I never
I work with
introduced
the
anybody.
Newton Institute, and we have a process we've been fine tuned over the last 40 years, where we help people achieve a deep state of trance, and in that state, they're able to expand their awareness to the afterlife for a few hours. It's kind of like having an out of body experience, or it is like that's just a term, out of body. You're still, it's like who you are just expands larger.
Yes.
Your energy expands larger to take in more of what's actually there.
It's kind of like a Zoom call where you're sitting in the chair, but then you're all over, you're in people's different, videos. And so you're still here, but you're able to see
Yeah,
a lot
but
of different places.
it's a feeling that you're out of the body because you're into a new place that you are not used to, that's new to you in a way. But in that state, we found out that that's where we're created. We're created over there, and then we just come down in here to experience. And when we're done with the experience, we go home, back where we actually originate. And we realize that, like you were saying, that in part of the research we've done, 70,000 people now, that when they decide to be born, they don't put all of their soul self into the body. They're always a part that they keep in heaven. So, in other words, what you're talking about too sounds like a fragmentation of the soul a little bit, like because of trauma or something like that. There may be pieces that when they pass away, pieces that are kind of left behind until something happens to eventually bring, that part of them back home again, so where they can be whole again. And that would make sense. I mean, since we know the other part to be kind of proven to be true now with everybody that experienced that with thousands of people.
And that's why some of us, when we come down on this planet, we're feeling very fragmented. Sometimes we can be very fragmented. It's because that, we've come down not necessarily, like I know a couple people that have had premature babies, and they take a while to be here. They're slow processors. They're not necessarily all here and that kind of stuff. And so with that they're fragmented coming in, but if they go back and pick up pieces of their souls, they'll be less fragmented. But some of us don't have that journey in this lifetime, and that's okay. A lot of us are 3D in this world, and we're not meant to know that. But that's where we can go back at other times and pick up that soul. That's what part of our going home is about, is picking up those pieces of the soul if we're meant to. If not, then that's part of, like for me, that was part of my life lesson, was to know that, to do that, so I can help others do that.
Yeah.
Because in our physical realm, we do things differently than we do in a spiritual realm. It's a different process. It's a different looking at things.
It seems like in general that ghosts, spirits, or whatever seem to be harmless in a sense, that they don't do physical except emotional, scaring people, and maybe that way. But I'm sure if we had someone on here that they're an expert on it, they probably have a few cases where they will say, well, this case shows that a spirit, actually, did physical harm to somebody, or.
Oh yes, there is. But there's different processes with that soul. A lot of times they can be a soul that it was very powerful in human form, and they stay in powerfulness. Or there is more of a black energy in the home, which is poltergeistic, or I'm going to say demonishness. I'm trying to be careful my words here because I don't want to scare people, but there is these beings that are dark, and they are harmful. They can harm. There's some places I do not walk into.
Yeah.
I'm not meant to clean them out. I'm not meant to do any clearings. Actually, the property has been used as uh, has had some if the especially if the property has had ceremony there of darkness, then the property it has and can have intention of negativeness, which brings in even darkerness. They bring in portals, which bring in darkness.
Yeah. Well, um, I think I want to talk to some other of the other, there's 250 of us that work for the Newton Institute, and we're all over the world. But I would like to, at a next conference or something, talk to a lot more about spirits and that sort of thing, because in this process that we do, it seems like God's opened a portal for people to visit heaven and come back. When they're there, there's no such thing as the devil or hell or evil spirits or anything. But the only way I'm looking at it so far, it's like this elevator in a way, and that on sixth floor and below, which is our realm here, that we've created these demons and this scary stuff and everything. But kind of once you rise above that, it's like you're in another world, and that in that other part there, those kind of things don't exist, you know. But they must appear down here for a reason, I mean, we of course we have that. That's how people learn down here, the difference good and bad, or we call
Mhm.
evil
The
and
dark and the light, that's
yeah.
how we learn. But, I do not I've dealt with darkness. I have dealt with demons. I have cleared out demons in some properties because I do house clearings. And I know that when, they never go up
They
when they're
never what?
cleared. They never go up when they're cleared. They always go down. And that a lot of movies, they do the same thing. They go down into the every time they go down. And so to me, negativity goes down, positivity goes up.
Yeah.
It's just
Well,
it's just the way it is. We have light on top of the table, we have darkness under the table. You know,
so when you do these clearings, is it like, in other words, it's like if you have a bad guy in a robber in your house, and you just say, "Hey, not in my house, just get out here," and he just goes out and goes down the street, and in other words, you're just getting them out of that place where
oh
they
no, no, no,
are.
no, no, no. I call in beings that I don't spend time asking them truly where they take them, but that's where we have certain beings of light that do handle these darknesses.
Yeah.
Like I did an area clearing when I was at a casino, and these beings were not good. I mean, it made my stomach turn, and not in a good way. I had a friend who was walking with me, and she was really buzzed. She walked through that energy, and she was not buzzed at all. I mean, it was like their energy was sucking, very sucking. And so what I ended up doing was is that whoever these guys were not good beings. I can't tell you really what they looked like because they were not good looking at all. And so what I ended up doing was
Yeah,
I
you're
called
freezing.
in Lucifer. I called in Archangel Lucifer, you know,
Yeah.
and he ended up doing the work because nothing else I was calling it was working. And so I called in the energy that was willing to do the work. And then once that was cleared and they cleared, then my girlfriend was standing there with me while I was doing this clearing, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, what's going on? I feel da 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 da." And I say, "Oh, that's Lucifer coming up and da 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 da." And then she goes, "Who just walked in? Oh my, the love." And I said, "That's Mother Mary. Mother Mary just came." And so she came in and she cleared the energy. Jesus came in and cleared the energy. Michael came in and cleared the energy to make it more righter. And then there was something else that happened with her that was able to take that negativity away as that portal was kind of open in the energetic floor to
So
take things away.
we don't know where Mother Mary or um, uh, Michael, where this dark energy actually went to, if it was just moved to another place and still remained the same, or did they heal that dark energy, or all we know is it's just left the area, right? Like Elvis has left the building, So where did he go
Yeah, but
next?
I can say to you that right at that time, not to say that there's not a back door that these beings walk back out again, but I can tell you that they went down and were taken care of. They were
Yeah,
taken care of. I do not get the sense that they are coming back soon. I know that it's hard to know if light and love are here, but it is here and it's doing its work. It's just taking some time to do it. And and I can tell you that when I call in Jesus and Azrael and a lot of the other beings that help through this darkness, that they do take them, and they it's not necessarily, a lot of times if they are negative souls, let's say they were very powerful souls, and they were human beings and they were powerful souls, that they ended up going into a certain part of experience and kind of helped to get out of that mindset of what this life was here to teach them and show them. And it's just a little bit longer journey for that soul to wake up, and
yeah,
to go through its this is the reason why's, it's a special category, I'm going to say, that that can negotiate. And then but if it's a soul that's troubled, that's where I call in Jesus and Azrael and people who can help clear and soften that, and give those souls a reason for things to happen. And they do take them home. And I know for me that as I see them walking on either side of them, and somebody in an energy of love in back of them, sometimes a grandparent or a mother or somebody who's with them and helping them walk, they are so surrounded by love. So I don't even care where they go, because it's like I just know they're surrounded by love. It's not my story to keep track of all that.
right, yeah,
You know what I mean? If I was to keep track of every house clearing I did, I care about the people. I check in with the people once in a while. But if I carry everybody, can you imagine how much darkness I would be in?
yeah,
And that's not for me to do.
yeah.
It's just not for me to do.
Well, because some people say they don't believe in ghosts, they don't believe in evil spirits, but even the Catholic Church has a whole, you know, a whole section of the church that's in charge of exorcisms.
Hmm.
So, but one thing we discovered when I was in hypnotherapy school is a lot of times hypnotists have been able to get rid of, this part which people perceive of as evil demon, when what they looked at it was in school was it was just a dark side of that person, like it was something within themselves, not necessarily a separate entity, but it was the flip side of themselves that somehow was there. And so sometimes an exorcism was nothing more than dealing with that person's altar, in a sense, like they have an altar in there, and whether that altar was another soul in there or whether it was just part of themselves. So again, it gets complicated, that there's a lot of reasons somebody can seem to be like possessed
Hmm.
that way.
And that's why I would say that we can have this conversation. I try to be careful how I have these conversations, because it is a personal belief, and I never want to push somebody's personal belief, my
Yeah,
belief, on somebody else. I want to give a doorway to have an understanding. But the thing is, though, that it's such an individual case. It is such an individual case. And there's sometimes where we do have these energies that try, like I had dark fae that were in my kid's bedroom while she was living here. And the dark fairies, the dark fae, they're not fae, but they were kind of gnomish feeling, but they were dark. They were meant to be dark. They were meant to be on the evil side because they were vacuums of the depression that my kid had. So they would
Yeah.
be vacuuming out or holding energy of darkness so that my kid wasn't overrun by darkness.
Well, the more we're learning about energies, I mean, it's like we're learning, but it seems like we've only scratched the surface, really. We're
Mhm.
finding out that our energy, this energy that we put out, that everybody puts out collectively, individually, is actually creates most of the drama in the world. And we
Exactly.
know that like seeks out like. So if they say a person in a bar who's drunk and depressed is more apt to have some negative entities kind of attach themselves to them
Mhm.
because those negative entities want to have a buddy, someone that feels just like them, you
Exactly,
know.
and sometimes that entity is like, someone who, passed away when they were drunk in a car accident, and that was
Mhm.
the bar that they always knew, and then the person who was sitting in there was kind of a little bit of a bright light, and you go, "Hey, I can tag along on this guy," and be with them. I also know that when there is, I call it the energy of addiction, and it's kind of, I wouldn't call it an entity, but it's an energy of addiction that is attached to people who have addictions,
Yeah.
and it's dark. It likes to whisper in somebody's ear saying, "You don't know better. Why are you thinking that? Where are you at? Why are you doing why are you trying to get healthy? Come on, let's go out and do something." It helps the negative side of us to stay in that negative cycle. And a lot of times I see that energy kind of whispering in their ear, or having a, it's almost like me wearing my shawls. It's like a cloak over an energy of someone who is in addiction. And that's why it's so hard to get out of addiction sometimes, because there's that energy that is kind of saying, "We don't want you to get healthy. We don't want you to get healthy." And I know it took my husband probably about 2 months after he was sober before that energy left him, until he decided that he was going to get sober. And that's why some people get clarity around 5 months, because of that addiction energy finally relieves the person that is carrying that
Yeah.
addiction.
Yeah. Well, I had an interesting date one time when I was single, and um, it was on a dating site, and I kept making a connection with this one woman, and she kept, it seemed like it was going on good. So I'm finally going, you know, okay, it's been 3 months. We're going back and forth, and you're kind of hot and cold, but I want to have a date with you. So she made a date, and then just before prior to that date, then she canceled, and then a few days later she called up and apologized, and then she says, "No, I really want to go on a date with you." So we go out, we go to a movie. She was a stunt person in a Hollywood movie, uh, and she had gotten injured, and so she couldn't work as a stunt woman anymore. But this new movie that came out had a lot of her friends that were doing stunts, so she wanted to go see it. So it was great. We're having a great time. Saw the movie, and as we're coming out, she says, "I need to use the restroom." I said, "Fine." So I'm standing there for about 20 minutes, and she doesn't come out. So now it's the first date, and I'm thinking, okay, is she okay, or what's going on? So just as I was starting to walk over to one of the women people in the theater to say, "Could you go check on my friend here?" She comes out staggering. So now all kinds of things are going through my head. Is she okay? Do I need to get her to a doctor? Is she doing drugs, or all
Hmm.
these things going on in your head? And then she leans on me and she said, "She's okay. She just forgot to take her meds. You need to get her home. You need to get her home right now, and you need to get her meds." And I'm going, "What?" So I got in the car, took her home, and that same other person in her, something says, told me where the blue pills are. Said, "Get them. She's going to be okay." And then so I went and got the pills. She took them, and then another kind of personality came out. This little girl, kind of like, "Please don't leave. Please don't leave." Oh, she needs you to be here. So I'm thinking, what do I do? Because I'm trying to be compassionate. I could tell this person's actually in some kind of trauma.
Hmm.
So then the other person comes back out again, says, look, she needs to get some protein right now. Go to the refrigerator, cook her something there. And I opened the refrigerator, and it was packed with nothing but chicken in the freezer, just chicken, chicken, chicken. So I cooked some of that, and I got a piece of bread, gave that to her. And then they said, now please stay with her. Please stay with her till she's okay. So I said, okay. So I stayed there, and about 2 hours later, it was about 5:30 in the morning. She fell asleep, and I thought it was okay to leave. So I did. So I get a call the next day, so apologetic. I'm so sorry. I needed to share something with you. And she said, I've just been diagnosed with multiple personality disorder, and I was going to tell you or something, but it was the first date. How am I going to, just kind of happened on that first date. Well, I got to know her more. She knew I was becoming a therapist. So we talked, and was probably one of my first clients before I was certified, but I was trying to help her that, she'd been abused as a 2-year-old, and she said, that's the first time when I left my body.
Uh-huh.
And
It was survival.
this therapist, right, had identified 21 different personalities that she had that she was totally unaware of, and she talked about finding herself in hotel rooms half dressed sometime, and she didn't know how she got there, and it was like a day had passed, and then she would, come. That's when she started getting help,
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's amazing. There's just so many variations of things of, okay, was that demons that had her? Was that just part of her own soul that was fragmented because of abuse? Wow, so.
And that's where too, we got, like for me, I channel Mother Mary, I channel Mother Earth, and a lot of people who have that, they have these beings. Have you ever had a walk-in? Have you ever heard of a walk-in?
I've heard
Um,
I've heard them before. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's where a soul leaves and another soul comes in, and so
Yeah.
a personality can change. People kind of wonder, did your husband have a walk-in? And I go, no, he just had a part of him that left, the alcoholic part of him that left, so he had a part of his soul, or a part of
Yeah.
his knowing leave. But that's where a lot of times there is, because we do have energies that are right around us. We have grandparents loving, we can have walkthroughs come through. And if you know that this energy has this doorway or this vulnerability area, they can actually channel without knowing that they're channeling.
Yeah.
And I used to channel without knowing because I was so vulnerable, but it was always something of good. I had great guardians, but sometimes when you go through trauma, that 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 shatters somewhere.
Yeah.
And so they channel without knowing that they channel.
Yeah. Well, people are so familiar with The Secret and the movie and the book, about how to manifest things, and people don't realize that all that information was channeled through. I think it was through Abraham. No, it was Abraham through the Hicks, the husband and wife, and channeled that whole all the stuff for that book and stuff. I might have that mixed up a little bit, but I think that was correct. That the information that everybody sees now as mainstream in a way, reading The Secret about how to
Mhm.
manifest and everything, actually came through channeling,
Mhm.
and that sort of thing. So, um,
Exactly.
man, oh man, the one case, and we're talking about the spirits and this crazy stuff. The one case they talked about in hypnotherapy college was, there was a classic case. There was a woman had missing time, so she went to the doctor to see if her brain's okay, and they said, well, maybe you need to go to be regressed if through a hypnotist. So she came to the college there to get some free therapy, and what eventually happened was she told the therapist that she remembers getting up in the day, cooking her husband breakfast, taking her daughter to school, and next thing she knew, it was like 2:30 in the afternoon, and she'd be there picking her daughter up, but she didn't know what happened between the time, like 3 days a week. She didn't know what happened between the time when she dropped her daughter off and picked her up. She had a total blank. So in deep hypnosis, her alter came out with a different name, different voice pattern, everything like this. It was her alter, and what eventually she found out is that woman, actually, she was a prostitute 3 days a week during those times, but her herself didn't know anything about that. So eventually they had a talk with the alter, and for the good of the whole, the alter decided that was going to integrate with her, you know. So in hypnosis, the hypnotist introduced them both, which is the other side of herself. That was this thing. They found out she had a separate bank account with $30,000 in it that she'd made from being a prostitute. And and then they're going, how am I going to tell my husband? He's never going to believe this, you know. So the therapist there, like in hypnotherapy school, they said, well, this hypnotherapist was really smart. What he did is they went to the bank and, you know, took the money out and then had it sent to her from like her parents, saying it was a gift to her and her family. So she ended up being okay because they, you know, but going further in that, the reason she split off into that was that early on in her marriage, her father-in-law had raped her.
Oh,
And this shame of that, how's she going to deal with that? How is she going to talk to her husband about that? What's going to happen? Some people are that sensitive enough that they break off. They can't deal with it.
yeah,
So
exactly.
other,
That's where the fragmentation of soul happens.
yeah, because she didn't feel she could have sex with her husband now. And so that other part of herself, that sexual need or something, came out in that dysfunctional way as that other person, you know? So, you know, I mean, it's the mind is a scary place.
Oh, good. Yes.
So,
oh, yes.
Yeah. Hey, in the last 10 minutes or so we have here or something, I was going to ask you now, Natasha, like if somebody feels that they're being bothered by something of a dark energy, and if they don't have the skills that you have, you know, as far as being able to really notice that, to call in the angels and to get rid of them, how does the average person deal with that? How do they protect themselves, or how do they rid themselves of that negative energy?
See, and that's where that's where finding out more about ourselves can really help. When we just keep going through the day and we don't really remember driving to work, let's say, we don't
Yeah.
really remember doing things, that's where we can get into big trouble. And so I would suggest that, you know, me being a psychic medium and personal awareness life coach, so I've gone through this work of really finding out myself. Why does my elbow hurt? What's in my throat? You know, why does my ankle feel weird? You know, just, you know, get to know yourself better and better, to know what feels right. Because when you know what you are and who you are, then you know when something is wrong, when you know something is off. Like there's been times where I was like, wow, I'm grumpier than I usually am, you know, and I knew that about myself, that I'm not usually a grumpy person. I have times when I'm a double cancerian, that I need to go in my shell and kind of close down and not necessarily deal with people, but I'm not grumpy, I'm not bitey. And this time I was bitey, and I was like, wow, who's around me? What's around me? And I was like, and so with me, I know whoever, whatever is with me, get off of me, get away from me, and I smudge. I smoke, I smudge, I do these different things, but I knew right away that something was wrong, something was off. And when we can do that, then that's when we can go ahead and fix. Like the girl who really started noticing, you know, hey, there's something going off on my timing here. What can I do to find out about it? So she found out what to do to make it more right. So
Yeah.
that, you know, you have to know yourself. That's one way of figuring out which way to go from there.
Yeah.
And
Now, a lot of people, in another, we could take 10 minutes sometimes in another podcast to talk about smudging and the benefits of it and where it came from, that sort of thing. I always used to think that was hocus pocus. You know, you see the Indians, yeah, like American Indians sometimes, and they're smudging, and then the New Age people, you know, when they had a house, they would light this, you know, smelly stuff all over the house, and I would find myself thinking that was stupid, and then I realized I grew up in that in the Catholic Church, you know, when we do the Stations of the Cross, and they had
yep.
they did that to everything, and they had this stinky stuff, and they did this. Anybody's Catholic out there remembers of the smudging, you know, that they did, you know, at the time when they did this 12 Stations of the Cross, you know, around
Exactly.
Easter. And I remember how that really smelled and it got all over you. But but they never told us what the reasons behind that, that had to do with the balancing of energies or getting rid of anything negative,
Because that was pagan, and a lot of religions didn't wanna own that, pagans, they didn't wanna say, "Well, the pagans know what they're doing."
Right.
You know? So, but I wanted to leave everybody, with this note that I had a friend who shared this with me, and it came from Jeff Brown. Okay, so give me a second here to read. Think of your triggers as ghosts from your exponential and ancestral history. They are ghosts who have not yet found their peace. They want to. They want to. That's why they keep showing up in your life. But they need your help. They need you to get in close, to listen as they share their unresolved past with you. They need you to see them in just the same way you want to be seen. If you keep ignoring them, they won't go away. They will just show up more often, and your life will become a kind of ghost filling prophecy, one where every choice you make will haunt your days. Perhaps it's time that we accept what we are, the haunted house that we fear. In each room, a ghost that is ready to be listened or liberated. In the basement, the the unconscious that is ready to be resolved or revealed. We don't need to give ourselves candy on Halloween. We just need to give ourselves permission to heal. That's the sweet gift of all.
Hmm.
Kind of food
Yeah.
for thought. I know I was kind of chopped that up a little bit and I apologize, but um it's one of those things that, spirits and ghosts, and it's more than an hour conversation.
Yeah.
It's literally more than an hour conversation, but yet at the same time though, that's where I walk around with light and love. That's why I have Mary and Jesus not as the Catholic religion, but as love and light. That's why I work with the angels. That's why I work with divine love, because I know for me that me walking with divine love, as you do, Regan, that it can heal, it can protect us, it can work for the greater good. I know for me, working in the elementary or in the school system that I do, there is darkness. I walk by darkness every day, but I also know my light and my love is greater than darkness. And
Yeah.
I believe that. I have to believe that. I understand that and I believe that. And when I do believe in that, nobody has more power over me than light and love.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, the darkness, that kind of thing's never been a part of my life. It's never been anything I've experienced personally, and I'm not asking to, unless I need to understand this. But what I'm just trying to do is just keep an open mind about everything, because time after time after time, I found myself that there's so much more to the world and how things work than I know. You know, I things that I'm open to now that I really truly believe in, I never would have 10 years, 20, 30 years ago, different things. But I found out we just need to stay open, and this is something that needs to be discussed, darkness and light, and
Mhm.
evil spirits or not, or whatever. How are we going to understand everything if we don't be open to at least other people's perceptions, or people that know more than us about something?
Mhm.
Um, and then we can decide ourselves what we want to take on. But I would say to people out there, uh, just do anything you can to be more mindful in your life about what's happening, what's around you, what's going on. Um,
Mhm.
I think the best thing that mindfulness gives you is gives you more compassion and empathy for people that are going through things, uh, because everybody seems to be going through something. We were
Something.
talking about on the way back from Monterey today, this 3 hour drive, we were talking about so many people that we know that are going through challenges right now with rehabs and stuck in their life, and especially the people between their 20s and 30s. They
Yes.
seem to be walking around like zombies. They just don't, the world is changing so much. Very difficult for them to know their life's path. So somehow we'll all get through this because we're all here to help each other walk home. That's what Richard Martini says. That if anybody looking now, check out Hacking the Afterlife. He does a podcast like Natasha and I do with a very good medium like Natasha, and they have he always says we're just all here to help each other make the walk home. So, and I hope probably the things we talked about today, it's just going to open up a zillion more questions about it, but just be open and see what's there and see how it can help your life to know that you understand a little more about what the possibilities of life are, what's going on out there. Anybody wants to get a hold of me, you can at visittheafterlife.com. And I'm one of 250 trained therapists for the Newton Institute. We've helped 70,000 people actually visit heaven or the afterlife, whatever you call it, expand their awareness for a few hours, get answers to a lot of their questions, because just like Natasha gets answers through,
Knowings.
is the middle person between the angels and here. And when you get on the other side and people are there, they'll answer any questions you have, and you'll see that you're loved, that you're not alone. Everybody has a guardian angel assigned to them, and your life has meaning and purpose. So now I also do regular therapy over Zoom for PTSD. I'm just about ready to get my certification in havening, Natasha. I really have hopes for that. It's kind of like EFT and EMDR, but the havening people say that it's even more successful and works even quicker. And it's about that, we call it the havening touch, and it's about this and this and this, and it's a way that they're helping to rewire the brain to take away your fears and phobias and PTSD and everything, and they've got an amazing amount of success with it.
Wow, that'll be, and then you put it with other things, because sometimes it's a combination of all of them.
Yes.
That can be the balance for someone, or a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that, or less of that. It's amazing how when you have these different techniques that they just help bring the soul back to the body and the body to the soul.
So there's for people out there just have regular problems getting over childhood traumas, fears, phobias, stress. There's some modalities that are easy to teach where you can actually do these things on yourself, and you can make your life so much better to reduce your stress, to do a lot of emotional healing yourself. And I'd love to help people. So you can get a hold of me there. And Natasha, like when they want a reading from you, or if they want to have a feng shui done from their house or something, how do they get a hold of you?
House blessings and feng shui. I kind of combine the two of them together. That you can reach me at angelicclarifications.com, and I am one who really helps people go through. Right now, I'm doing a lot of healing through dimensional work. So the dimensions that we have through our DNA, and then the dimensional work through past lives. And I love bringing those two in to heal the body's emotional field, and which helps heal the physical field of like the digestive system, and heals a lot of the joints and stuff like that, so that we can work together. So if you're looking at, and I can do remote house clearings too. It does help to be there, but yet at the same time, which I'm gonna be wanting to travel here soon. So if everybody knows a group of people, I can always come to you. That I love, but I can do this remote too. It's if it's a really bad haunting, it's nice to have somebody local, but I could do a lot of work remote. So with that, just know I'm here for you at angelicclarifications.com. Oh, we are here Mondays and Wednesdays. Regan and I are here on Mondays from 4 Pacific time on the Dance of Soul. And then on Wednesdays, I am here with Life Clarifications with Natasha. And you can catch this on podcast at Life Clarifications with Natasha on most podcast platforms.
Yeah. So next week we'll be deep into November, getting close.
Yeah.
I'm going to be seeing clients in Los Angeles. I live in San Francisco area. Anybody watching, and you can see me in person here, or I go to LA 3 or 4 times a year, and I've got I think 3 people want to do the Life Between Lives and Experience Heaven lined up, and maybe a fourth be down there from the November 11th to the 21st. So
Not next week, but the week after.
yeah. So I'll be at Carrie and Larry's place on that one Monday. And, thanks for helping her too. She's, you've given her some great advice, and it was neat. Like I say, when we had you here for the week and we had that big party, and almost everybody at the table you'd helped. There was about 12 of us, and I think 8 of them there you'd helped in one way or another. So they
Oh,
all
good.
loved seeing you.
Well,
So it
good.
was
Yeah,
great.
that's where sitting with love. A lot of times I don't do much, but I just sit with love, and that helps. So,
Yeah.
thank you. I want to come down and see you guys again. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I love you, and we will talk
Okay.
to everyone, and see you
Next
next
Monday at
Monday.
4.
Okay. Bye now.
See you then. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Yes, that came fast, didn't it?